Have you ever felt so exhausted and drained that you're left questioning if you're burning out? Hi, I'm Flic Taylor, and my passion for burnout and self-care came about when I became a mental health writer who'd lost her mental health to extreme burnout. I know, the irony is not lost on me. Join me as I host Everyday Burnout Conversations, the honest podcast that shares the stories of others from all walks of life as they recover from, manage and avoid burnout by prioritising their mental health and well-being. Expect to hear fascinating conversations, plus positive and actionable tips and tricks that can help you make the simple life changes your mental health will thank you for. Episodes will be delightfully wrapped up in some epic truths and great humour. So, enjoy! In today's episode, I sit down and have a fabulous chat with the super lovely and wise Antonia Taylor. Antonia is a PR consultant and business communication expert who helps small businesses and startups develop their brand strategy and storytelling and content strategy. I adore her informative Instagram live chats with industry experts, and I've learnt so much from her brilliant Instagram posts. We also talk about her fab goal-setting power hours that she hosts in this chat. So if you're a solopreneur or a small business, then make sure you check her out after listening to this. And also, I would highly recommend you sign up for her fantastic newsletter too. Now, don't you just love it when you connect with someone for the very first time and yet you feel like you've known them for years? Well, chatting with Tony felt like one of those moments for me. It was an absolute joy chatting to her. And after we finished recording, we both laughed. We were like, have we known each other in a previous life? Anyway, you know when you do that. So, sit back and enjoy this honest and supportive chat between two women contemplating their life, careers, upbringing, family life, raising teens, and the matter of burnout. Oh, and we also mentioned quite a few people or resources throughout our chat, and I've added those to the show notes. So I don't want you worrying about trying to catch them all and take notes. I've got you covered. So without further ado, enjoy my chat with the lovely Antonia Taylor. Right then. Oh, Antonia, it's so lovely to chat to you today, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I have been following your social media, your Instagram posts, and it was amazing to reach out to you because I was like, oh, you're putting in some great messages there about burnout, but then you also said, I have some really cool angles on second generation immigration, how that affects burnout. So I would love us to talk about those things today. So I was just wondering, silly question, have you had any brushes with burnout?
Prepared for this, Flic, and thank you for having me. It's so lovely to be here. And I know that listeners can't see your gorgeous face, but I can, so that's a joy. So I was thinking, I think I have a habit of burnout brinkmanship.
Right. Ooh, yeah.
So kind of almost pushing to that point of something is a wheel somewhere is going to fall off and this is not going to be pretty. And I think I've had I can name sort of like this. There was, I think one of the reasons I went freelance is because I was about to fall off the burnout cliff.
Okay.
I think I probably was very burnt out. I developed, I don't want to go into too much detail, but certainly developed IBS. I had terrible stress, terrible anxiety. This was coming up for 9 years ago. I was probably just putting my foot on the accelerator towards this crash. And in the end, I sort of ended up going freelance in the October. So I'd say there was that. And then I think probably a couple of years ago, I got quite close to it as well.
Yeah.
And then I just think something just landed this May, Flic, for me. I think it was like, I can't even remember, 1 minute everyone's saying, oh yeah, we've been in this pandemic for 12 months, and then it's 14 months. And now I actually have to get my fingers out and count how many months we've been in this.
I know.
Sitch. And I just think in May, I just kept finding myself say the word burnout, and I use it really carefully.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sort of, minimize, I've got so many friends that have had deep, like you, deep experiences of burnout, possibly life-changing experiences. So I do use it really lightly. But certainly by May, I found myself using it probably every third sentence. We went away for half term, went down to Cornwall, had a break. And I was just kind of, you do that thing when you're just like, I'm just going to get to that date. I'm just going to get to that date. I'm just going to get to that break. I'm going to push myself to get there. And then so we went away and it's okay. I was kind of felt a bit better. And when I got back, of course, I was really unwell. So I could hardly speak because my whole lower mouth was just, I think I had about 14 ulcers.
Oh.
Those psychosomatic stressful symptoms that you get.
Manifests.
And I know, and I know it's very low grade. It's not like, but it's a sign. And if you can't see your body,
it's your body.
It's your body telling you, yeah. So I was just like, right, something's got, and I think I caught myself then thinking, right, you do this. You do this. So, and then what you do is you do it till you do it again. You stop and then you start again and you get yourself to this point and then you start. So I just found myself developing this pattern of burnout, brinkmanship, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I was just, this time it's got to change. I'm just done with it. Yeah. Done. So now is the time for actually not just sort of like, stopping for 2 days, like, in your intro when you said, right, I'm going to just take a couple of weeks off and then I'm going to go back to it. And then when you went through that, you were just like, shit, this is actually like a 6-month jobby.
Oh my God. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit, I wanted to sort of be really sort of honest with you. Like, there's that, as a writer, they tell you to write from the scar, not from the wound.
Oh, it's really hard.
Yeah, but there might be a little bit of writing from the wound in this chat today, because I think I'm still just coming out of it as well and just sort of like navigating this sort of like wobbly space afterwards.
Yes, and I have definitely written from the wound. Oh my gosh, I can remember when I first started blogging and I was just like, oh my God, I don't feel very well. I feel like it was just triggering me. But at the same time, I think when we do share from the wound, yes, it's not packaged neatly and it's not kind of these digestible, easy chunks people take, but my God,
might not be your best work.
It's real. And my experience is that a lot of women have gone, oh, that's exactly how I felt. I just didn't know how to put it into words. And to be honest, I don't know about you, you kind of think, yeah, I didn't know how to put it into words. It just kind of came out of me. It's just there.
Yeah. It was like it tells itself, doesn't it? It was just like, I wanted to write about this, but then I found myself actually having to write about this.
Yes.
Because exactly. It needs, yeah.
Exactly.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. And so you must, because you're working with clients, you must see from the outside, other people kind of struggling to balance and keep things in check. And I know you set up a workshop, didn't you? A 2021 summer.
Right, 21. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I started that series in January this year when we in the UK we were in like deepest, darkest third cycle of lockdown, and it was just a way to connect and to just right into. I think we all feel drifting, and I think if we have if we're working towards something, sometimes it kind of keeps us on track, even if it's a gentle goal. So I ran a series of those in spring, and then I just thought I'd catch up with, because I've built a little community around it and some amazing women like to come along, and we do some writing exercises. It's not necessarily about being like, no one's made to read anything. Literally we talk about some goals and we write into that. We sort of it's journaling, and then we just chat about that. But again, I think what came up today, we sort of had a group of about 25 brilliant women, creatives, founders, small business owners, like yoga teachers, coaches, consultants. And everything was just, just being burnt out again. And it's interesting because like one of the questions was, what do you want to do? And people couldn't answer that question.
Yeah.
Because we don't, as women, we kind of lose sight of that. We kind of lose that, like, what do you want? And I sometimes I have these chats with my friends, like, they get a bit stuck in their business, or worky friends and stuff, and they just say, but what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know.
We don't know what we want to do other than just get through the to-do list and survive.
Yeah.
It's like,
but then
change to the to-do list. And
But then also I think because I think burnout really happens, when you're not, and I know I don't want to sound too woo-woo, but when you're not aligned and you're not in purpose and you're not feeling intentional. I think when you get further and further away from yourself, I think that's when the burnout really, really, truly kicks in. I think that's when you've got to really start looking at your toolkit and thinking, right, what can I do to get myself back to me? Because, you know, whoever this me is, we were just talking when we were sort of getting ready to go live, to go into the chat, you know, about how I think a lot of us have got to meet ourselves in a new place after the pandemic. Yeah. And we need a new framework and a new conversation around burnout and just being really aware of it. I think this time, back in May, sort of June, what had changed for me is that I could see it. I knew how to pick up on it. So that was, and make some quick changes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when you say, you know, when you're not aligned, it is looking at those circumstances you're in. I really wish now I had taken a step back and gone, okay, am I actually working in the job that I should be in? Like, is this worthy of what I bring to the table? No. So I really, instead of going, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, oh, they're saying this, and if I had just gone, okay, stop, what is right for me, I probably could have saved myself a lot of heartache and those physical illnesses and mess.
Yeah, no, Flic, I'm the same. In my previous agency, before I went freelance, you know, I'd grown up in a big London PR agency, and I loved it for years, and I loved it. I love the people. I'm still friends with the people, with so many of my colleagues. But like 2 kids moving to Reading from London, you know, just like all that sort of babies and nursery, all that stuff doesn't work. So when I moved to this other agency up in Oxford, and, you know, I think what it was I just didn't share their values. I didn't share their ethos. And yeah, I was sitting there killing myself for their P&L line. And I think that was, again, I became so distanced from, you know, and again, I blamed myself. I would like sort of, you know, if I had to leave early to go and get the kids, I'd sort of like scuttle out really quietly. I would like put the kids to bed to get back onto my laptop, all those sort of things to compensate for that. And really, I wasn't aligned to to the goals of that particular business. Yeah.
The self-blame piece is huge. That seems to be something that keeps coming up with people I talk about.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the session kindly that I did this morning, but I think guilt came up again, and people, I think women have felt really guilty about even trying to set some boundaries.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Even trying to set some boundaries, and I think, you know, and in some of the sessions I ran, you know, in January and February, when we were sort of more entrenched in homeschooling and kids at home, I think one of the things that really came through for my group as well is actually being able to say, you know, I'm just having this hour in the morning to write for an hour, or to just have a power hour at my laptop to get some emails out uninterrupted, to give myself some deep work time. You know, people need to be told that, but then it kind of comes at a cost as well. You kind of feel like, should I be making my 14-year-old's breakfast? Probably not, Tony. You know, he's 14, he's really capable. He's actually quite a pretty bright boy. He knows how to put a piece of toast in, because you've actually been quite a good mum.
Yes.
But then you're sitting there thinking, should I be doing his breakfast?
I found, I don't know about you, I found that the more I gave to work, and definitely imposter syndrome was in there, and just although they were wanting something very different to what I could bring to the table. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, and I still don't know if I can relate to what they needed. But it was definitely a case of the self-blame, and I've lost my trail of thread now. Where was I going with this? Because I was thinking of your boy at the table. Oh, I know.
Making breakfast for kids that are really for high. Yeah, that's the one that I really put. Yeah, and making breakfast for hyper-capable teenagers.
Yes, and but the more I did for work, the more I was like, oh, I'm not doing this for my kids. So I would then almost overcompensate and do so much for my kids. And you know, I'm bringing up 2 boys. I want them to be self-sufficient. I don't want them to think, you know, that only women make dinners, and so
you're dismantling the patriarchy at the same time.
Yes, but I was like, what am I doing? And I can remember feeling so incredibly guilty, because one day I was just like, I can't think. Actually, even my eyesight was going. And I just sat lay on my bed and looked at this tree from my window, and I felt so good. And I felt guilty about that. I was like, what is going on? Like, enough.
I think that guilt is, I think we do carry it. I think as women in particular, and I think this plays into, you know, the piece that we were chatting about sort of being, you know, granddaughter of, or daughter of, my dad's a refugee, you know, and my grandfather, I mean, so my grandparents were both, my dad from Cyprus, so from the north of Cyprus, and not going to get political. In 1974, there was a Turkish invasion, and a third of the island was siphoned off, and thousands of Cypriots lost their homes, their properties, their everything, and there was a war. My dad was actually he was a prisoner of war, and he came back. We were really lucky. My granddad, once, because he was quite young, once he came out of military, he wasn't of fighting age, but you know, the moment he got released from prison in 74, he just went into Nicosia and put some money down and started a shop again from scratch. And this is a story, Flic, that and then he built everything back up. He built everything. They lost restaurants, a hotel, they lost everything, and a way of life, and you know, so that was the loss for me, watching them struggle with that. But last year, when the pandemic hit, I think overnight, I think I lost probably about 60% of my client base. And I was like, oh, I've worked so hard for this. What is going on? And I kept a picture of, people won't listen, but I've got a picture of my granddad there, my bubble. I just kept,
look at.
But I just remembered like what he'd been through and how he managed to build everything back up. And he said, you know, I'm doing this for you. How he built everything back up, and he did, and resilience and creativity. And when we grew up in Cyprus, we lived downstairs, they lived upstairs. It's quite intergenerational living is really common in the Mediterranean. You probably know that. So, I mean, basically, it's kind of like having, you know, we would go upstairs after school. I'd go, and my granny would make us lunch every day when Mum worked, you know. We'd have supper together. It was very sort of that really fluid way of life. And I'm a really early riser, but I think it's because I was always so happy when I would hear like my granddad's van go off, but he'd just leave to go for work at 5 o'clock in the morning. He was such a hard worker, and he really instilled this discipline in all of us. I'm one of 4. And the one thing that me and my brothers and my sister all share is that we just are grafters. And my mum's like, I don't know where this comes from. Just like,
we saw it
last year when you know, shit hit the proverbial, I really drew on, you know, that story of my butthole, and like, you know, his resilience and what he was able to build up and restore and reconnect with, and his legacy. But I was thinking, it's why I would feel, going back to the original point, you know, I felt so guilty of, you know, relative, you know, I was like, why am I stressed about this when he could do that? And, you know, you carry that guilt with you as well. You almost like inherit that guilt, because kind of like, maybe I should be suffering more, maybe this should be harder. But to this conversation, one of the things I do remember is, no matter how hard my bapu worked, he always rested. He would come home. He would come home every lunchtime and have lunch with us or not, then have a bit of a, you know, siesta, because it's Cyprus and it's 40 degrees. He can't work in that. Yeah. And he would, you know, and then he would always, you know, he'd come home at 6 o'clock and pour his ouzo and, you know, look at the sunset and what have you. But that would be it. And then, you know, he rested. And I think maybe that's the bit that we've lost, like this new generation. So many of my Cypriot friends, Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot, particularly the ones in this country, say that they've got whenever I say I've got this really weird relationship with rest, they're like, oh my God, I'm the same.
Right, I can remember seeing an Instagram post and someone had commented and said, "Oh, yeah, yes, I'm exactly the same."
Tia, my friend Tia, she's Turkish Cypriot, and and she, So I just think there's that thing where it's almost like where our grandparents or our parents would be able to pause. And also the world of work was different, wasn't it, Flic? They didn't have phones, you know, and, you know, they would always have Sunday off, always, because it's that part of the world. Even if my granddad would work Saturdays, probably, but they switched off and they rested.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit that we haven't done.
Yes.
Well. So I don't know. That's kind of, I'm trying to work through those thoughts. That wasn't particularly articulate, but I think there is something in that. I think, you know, we've taken so many old work practices and then layered other things on top of it and forgotten how to give ourselves a break.
Yeah. And I don't think it was helped. Can you remember, it was a few years back, there was that, I feel the work culture is toxic anyway, but like, you remember there were those influencers who were like, work 80 hours a week and you're going to get what you want. And, you know, and it's just, it's so unhealthy because like your grandfather, he was able to do all of that. And you know, the sustainability in that was that he rested. And I think, I don't know about you, but definitely my experience was to work really hard, just do it all the time. But I didn't rest because I had my kids and then I wanted to overcompensate. And I never did anything for myself. I would fall asleep in bed with my phone working, which I'm just like, and I think it's really interesting because so, you know, you describe that lovely, like fluid family life, and it just goes to show little eyes are watching. And I say this a lot because as kids, the four of you were able to observe and watch. It was modeled to you.
Yeah, hard work, discipline, value of education.
Yeah. But enjoy
literally drilled in. Yeah.
Yeah, like you were never a second, you were up there. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, all four of you have become grafters, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, 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 really. And I think it's really common. And I think, you know, we were, you know, was second generation, you know, also because of the fact that we've got, my mum's half English, so we do have that as well. So it's interesting, it's funny, and but it's really reassuring when I see it, you know, amongst, you know, with my other separate friends, it's exactly the same, and so just something to dig into. I need to do some work around that one.
Yes,
I'm curious.
Yeah, because I know. Like I remember I would have been kind of early teens when my dad had his business and it kind of dissolved, and I can remember that really. I wonder if that really affected me on how much I now work, and almost a fear of failure. That the irony is I would never ever say to anyone like, you know, work, don't be a failure, like absolutely not. But to myself, that inner self-talk and narrative is pretty harsh. And I wonder, you know.
Yeah. And I think it probably is, because I think, to go back to Selina Barker's point, maybe ask her about this. I can't wait for you to, the conversation you have. I think, you know, I think there's that thing, almost that sort of, I've had to work really hard on scarcity mindset. Really hard on scarcity. I don't know if you've had to do the same because of that situation.
Yes.
I've had to really I've literally had, I think I did the Jen Sincero, You're a Badass with Money book or something. I actually had to work through that one about 4 years, whenever it came out, 3 or 4 years ago. I had to work through it because, again, I think it's that thing, like if you had this narrative, I mean, I wasn't born during the war, but I know that my mum has like told me about, you know, when you're standing in the July heat in Cyprus and all you've got is your baby, she had my brother, and a carry cot, and that's all you've got in the world.
Yeah.
That's your starting point. That's your base point. You're just like, oh. And I think there's always that thing, like, you know, this could all go. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. And it can really,
when you've lived through that, it's the same thing. I think one of my friends, she's been through that with her dad as well, and she has, that's very exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. But it's now, you know, I'm in my 40s and I'm kind of like, this doesn't serve me well. Like, you know, there's no sustainability in this. And I'm also very aware that I've now got kids who are early teens, and I don't want them to to pick up. You know what was really interesting? A year ago, so we were in lockdown, and I'm trying to, like, you know, I'd taken time off work. I'd quit my job. I was, you know, burnt out and trying to recover. And it was lockdown, and I was trying to, like, give my boys an incentive. And I was like, you know what, like, do some chores around the house and I'll pay you. And then, you know, I'm just thinking, then they can order things online. They just need something to kind of work towards and look forward to. So my 14-year-old says, yeah, okay, I'm going to wash up and unload the dishwasher. I'm going to do that. I'm like, brilliant. Now, at that time, I had not been paid for 3 months from a client, despite me keep, you know, contacting them and phone calls and stuff. And he came to me that night with a 3-page contract on what he was going to do and when I was going to pay him, and you know, the problems and the, you know, the consequences.
Goodbye.
I was like, can you write for me for my company? Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, and it just goes to show, for better for worse, little eyes are always right. I really hope that he will grow up to be like, yeah, I'm not going to ever let anyone take advantage of me. Yeah. But also, I think we can be the models of, like, your grandfather, of working hard, but then also making sure always time for family, always time for rest, so we can keep doing this.
And just be clear of it, click. He didn't glamorize it. I mean, he would literally go and, like, put his like a really thick duvet down on the balcony. You know, we had our house was lovely. It wasn't like, you know, but he would put his, in the summer, he would put his duvet on the balcony because it's kind of pre-air conditioning and everything, and just go and lie under the stars. And because my sister was really little, it's like her, you know, that was her childhood, like sleeping on the balcony in the stars with my granddad. It wasn't like glamorous.
That out in
but it kind of felt a bit. Yeah.
I would say, it's not glamorous, but I would say, oh my gosh, that's everything you need. Like, because I think this is where, you know, self-care isn't a face pack and a glass of wine. It is lying on the balcony in nature, looking at the stuff. That's a lot more rewarding, and it's going to do more for you than
I would probably got my sister through life. It's probably got my sister through life, I think.
Right.
That memory, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Oh, my goodness. So what things do you do for yourself now, Tony? Because you've seen, you know, you kind of pulled on, you know, slammed on the brakes and was like, oh, I can see May time. Because you wrote, I loved how you wrote, I wrote it down here. I do everything fast. I was like, oh my God, me too. Everything fast. What kind of things are you doing now to help?
Okay, so say... I've had a pretty good morning routine. Probably, I mean, it changes, but I've probably had it. I started getting up. I read that book, Laura Vanderkam, What the Most Successful People Do Before Breakfast, probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I kind of like, and she basically is like, you know, just get up half an hour earlier or an hour earlier. And so I started getting up. It must have been about 7 years ago. I started getting up around about 5:30, and then it started getting earlier and earlier. But what I was doing, Flic, was getting up early to work. I'd literally get up and, like, you know, and I was just like,
I did.
And that's you're not, you know, that was not what, I don't think you're meant to do that. So gradually I started using that hour or hour and a bit of time to actually just start looking after myself a little bit. So now it looks like, you know, it looks like meditation, and I'm not an expert. It's just maybe stillness is more accurate.
Yeah.
Or guide, you know, I use Insight Timer or something. And then my journaling is like, I'm sort of like, I've been trying to do the artist's way for about 12 years.
Right.
But 3 pages in the morning, just free writing. I think that's probably changed my life. I know it sounds ridiculous.
No, I do the same. And the what comes out kind of throws you sometimes, because you're like, oh,
it does. It throws you. Yeah. And I've got to the point now that if I don't do it, it's not a good day. Yeah. My daughter will say, she goes, oh, Mummy, did you do your degunking? Because she's like, why do you do this? And I'm like, it degunks my brain. And she can pick up on it. So do that. And then I do, like, you know what, anywhere between, you know, like, you averaging about 10 minutes of yoga, and then I'm good.
That's
amazing. But I find that, and also I like to map out my day, just like make sure I know what I'm doing throughout the day. So like block time chunk or task, what have you. Just sets me up, and then I'm good to go and give everything to, like, the kids' mornings, etc., and then clients and things. I've also started doing, about time last year, I started doing London Writers Hour, because I've always loved poetry. Wrote it a little bit in university, and then just about like life, like we were talking about. I'll come back to it. Then in lockdown, I kind of got a little bit more serious about it, and started getting a little bit published. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So I think just blocking out that creative time in the mornings as well. I do London Writers Hours 8 to 9, and I usually try and spend most of that on poetry.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, you're going to have to forward me the link so I can put it in the show notes. So
I will. Yeah, it's free. Yeah, London Writers Salon. It's free. It's amazing. It's set up by amazing Matronetti and Parole, and they were doing in person, and then they just all transitioned online last March. And it's an amazing community, and you can join it for free or you can upgrade. But it's just a brilliant community to be part of, and they do amazing writers events. So yeah, it's so having that hour. I don't do it every day. I didn't do it today. I went to go meet my friend for a coffee and a quick croissant.
That's amazing, though. You still get that time for yourself, and you every day you're doing something, whether it is a coffee with a friend or writing. It's come. I definitely had to, when I started doing London Writers Salon, I was like, how does this work at 8 o'clock in the morning? Yeah.
With kids going to school and husbands working from home and all that sort of stuff. How does that work? But I just worked out, even if I had to get up earlier to make sure that the kids were set up and all that sort of stuff, I just made it work. And I think, it's what Penny talks about on her podcast, isn't it? You will, when it becomes harder not to do it than it does to do it, you work out a way.
Yes, and Clover Stroud has been doing it as well, hasn't she?
Her early mornings. Yeah.
I wonder, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think there's a real sense of community to that. And I'm just thinking, so I know how important it is for me to do my journal and to write and do my thing, but life gets busy, and I wonder if being part of a community helps give you permission to do it. You know how women have this complicated relationship with permission to do things. I did a workshop with Elizabeth Gilbert, and she oh my God, she was amazing. Oh my God, it was 2 days. She was bloody incredible. I love her.
Big magic will always be,
it's amazing.
It's one of those books that you go back to, whatever, if you read it like 6 years ago, I just reread it about 4 months ago, and it's a completely different book. Now that I'm writing, because I was desperate to write and I just wasn't doing it. Now I am writing, reading it. It's one of those books that every time you read it, you take something from it.
Yes, it speaks so differently to you each time.
Sorry, I interrupted you, the workshop. Tell me about this.
One of her things, like she gets you to write these letters. And one of them is a letter from the headmaster or headmistress to give you permission to do something. Because she said, like, women, we're just not used to giving ourselves permission. It's almost like we need to seek that from someone else. And I wonder if these communities, these brilliant community, and like your community that you have, you're helping to give women permission to do things that they know they should do for themselves, that they enjoy doing for themselves, and it helps them continue. But it's that permission piece, I wonder.
Yeah, and the other thing I get is people saying that, like with London Writers Salon, I think so many people said, oh, I really need this. And like the feedback from my session this morning was, so many, one of my friends left a lovely voice note, and a couple of other people DM me, and it's just like, I really needed that.
Right.
So it ties into that sort of permission need thing. I don't know what the relationship is there, but there is one to explore. It's just like people know they need these things, but it's almost like they need that framework to be able to let themselves do it.
Yeah. And I think
like you say, you have
to burn it out.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not, and but I think, I think if you're doing that and you are feeling sort of, don't want to sound like a tosser, but, creatively fulfilled or nourished on some level, it does make it harder for you to burn out, I think, because you've got that kind of, you've replenished on some level.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, you've replenished on some level. And when I read I don't go back and read my journals, but I'm doing a big writing project at the moment. And I had a flick through them and I was like, even like this time 2 years ago, it's probably like I was probably just not being able to articulate that I need this permission to give myself space for the writing practice, or or to develop that sort of craft, as it were. Yeah. Pay attention to it.
Yes.
I think, again, I don't want to keep on quoting Penny, but I think they were saying, one of the podcasts that I remember listening to is that, treat this with the respect that it deserves. And it's almost that, isn't it? You have to treat your goals and your desires and your self-care, whatever, with the respect and the attention. Yeah. My friend, do you know Marianne Power?
Yes, I've got her book.
Yeah, help me. Yeah, so she always says that, paying attention. She does some lovely workshops. She sort of started them last summer. And she said, like, attention is a form of love. And again, it's that thing, isn't it? Like, with the burnout, it's almost like we're just like, we've been so pulled away. It always comes as a shock when it lands because we haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
We've been paying attention to work and schedules and to-do lists and laundry piles and beating ourselves up. We're not paying attention to, wait, what do I need now? Who am I now? How have I, how do I come out of this feeling of crapness, whatever it is? We're not paying attention.
Yeah.
So that ties back into self-love as well, because you're not paying attention, if attention is love, it's that.
Yeah. It really does.
Deep, Flic. We've gone deep.
Oh, look at us. We're getting in there. But I love some of the posts you put on your Instagram because they really do, like, hone in on that point that we have to prioritize ourselves and, look after ourselves.
And in the session today, a lot of the women said, I came here to set goals for my business, but actually I find I need to set goals in my life. And I thought that's kind of the point, because, as you are your business, right? You're a writer, you run a writing business. I am my business. We are our businesses. So if we I think it's that point that your husband made when you hit burnout, like, are we going to be okay? And he said, we're not going to be okay if you don't. It's exactly that. Like, by not nurturing ourselves as humans, your business isn't going to be okay. What's your business going to run from?
Yes.
You can't build a business on a superficial level of self.
Yes.
Or, a shadow of yourself. You need to be full and invested in it.
Yeah. And I would go as far to say that people won't be attracted to your business either, if it is that surface level.
That shell.
Hello. Whereas you can really tell, again, absolutely adore your newsletter and your Instagram. Because it's just so full of substance. It's more than to me. It's a community and incredible writing tips.
Thank you.
Because I really struggle with short copy. I'm like, ooh, lovely, I want to do that. But it's so
brevity is a gift. Brevity is a gift.
It's so full of substance. I believe. People are attracted to. There is an element of magic. Elizabeth Gilbert would say there's an element of magic to people showing up authentically, promoting good, supporting others.
Thank you. Well, look at you. Yeah, but again, I'd say this. That I do have a permission story. Do we have time for me to tell this story?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So I was at I think it was like a personal branding workshop, possibly when I was about 3 years into the business, like 5 years ago. I was 3 or so years into the business, and I was a brilliant guy called Phil Palin, and he's on. I'll send you a link to his. He's all about personal branding and sort of carving. He's like a lot more, let's say, it's like sophisticated branding than mine. But I was talking to him about how do I sort of position myself as. I really wanted at the time, I was obsessed by, this is where I was 5 years ago. I was obsessed by getting an accountancy firm on as a client, because I came from professional services, PR background. I was just obsessed.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how do I do this? You know, because at the time I wanted to bring more of myself into my brand. But I was like, well, then how do I talk to a big accountancy firm about this? And he was like, Tony, look at you. You're there in your pink jumper and your smile. And you're just like, this is what I would want. If I was a senior partner at the accountancy firm, bring you. You know your shit. You know your shit.
Yeah.
Not
exactly.
Your shit, but bring this, like, go in there with your, I remember I was wearing this pink jumper, he's like, go in there, like, be you. And it was almost like I had to get permission from this branding guy, brilliant as he is, say, just go in there and be you. And once I let go of that sort of like having to tie myself up in like this sort of like corporate situation, that's when things really started turning for me. And I became more myself, and sort of probably had a deeper sense of a personal brand than, being a sort of, shell of a consultant.
Oh,
gun for hire. It's, yeah. So, Sally Beaton, you've had her on your podcast.
Oh.
So, because I've always had this, again, Sally helped me so much with this one. She gave me this exercise where she made me go through my cupboard and take out, so I'm wearing a black dress now, but all my like sexy PR corporate-y black dresses. And she made me take them to a charity shop. She said, get rid of you're holding. Yeah, she said you're holding on to these because you think this isn't going to work, and you think that you can always go back to, sort of like column dress, flashy PR, Tony version of yourself that you were, I don't know how many years ago.
Right.
She said you need to get this out of your cupboard, take them to the charity shop, be you.
You know what? It's funny. I can remember going to a business event a couple of years ago, also pre-pandemic, and there's a really lovely businesswoman, Jennifer McKinnon, here, and she was doing like a presentation, and I can remember chatting to her. She came up to me, and she was there wearing her pink suit, and it was really interesting. She came up to me and she said, "So, tell me, how many people tell you are way too much?" And like, I live in Ottawa, and I'm like, oh my God, all the time, because I'm very expressive. I'm high energy, high intensity. And I kind of go into a room and just, I can't help it. I don't know why. I just give energy, and I want to connect with people and find out about people and lift them. And that's my phone. And she said to me, like, how many people have told you? And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea. And literally that month I had a situation at work where I was told I was too much. Like, stop.
Oh my God, Flic. Did you tell them that they weren't enough? Yeah. Maybe they were too little.
So warm. Stop being so friendly. Calm down. And I was just like, I work in mental health. This doesn't make sense to me. But so I said to her, oh my God, all the time. She said, yeah, never listen. She said, I used to she said, look at me, here I am, pink suit. And I'm like, oh my God, you're rocking it. You did an amazing job. I loved it. And she said, yeah, I literally spent the first 10 years like trying to be like my boss, or trying to be like, my mentors, and be all in black and be all like, okay. And I'm not. She said, Flic, look at Dolly Parton. You think of Dolly Parton, big boobs, hair, smile. She said, she is a super sharp businesswoman. Don't change. Be you. We need more people like you. And honestly, at the time, it was like an absolute gift from the gods, because I was really, although I then continued to believe what I was being told, but I really did start to doubt.
It's a start, yeah.
Yes.
But then imagine how many times that you played yourself down as well, Flic. Imagine
all the time.
There's that thing on Instagram about, don't dim your light for other people, whatever it is. But you do, I imagine that you were doing that. I imagine that you were sort of like, and that's also, and then also you get further away from yourself, and that's when you don't become aligned.
And you go into I think you go into survival mode as opposed to thrive. You're not being you. And I would never want my kids or any of my friends to not be themselves, because none of us are perfect, but oh my God, like, everyone has such a gift to bring to the table that it breaks my heart to see people being small, dimming their light. And I did it myself. Like, And in the end, just voluntarily, it was just like I went onto autopilot, like, here I am.
Yeah. I think, and that, I mean, I try and, just call authenticity into absolutely everything that I do as a consultant, a communication specialist. But, also like the way I work with my clients as well is just like, I'm not in the business of that sort of smoke and mirrors PR. And I'm like, unless there's a purpose to it, I'm like, guys, we're not doing it, because then it becomes shadow, it becomes too, it's just not what I believe in. But I think that authenticity thing, but again, I mean, we're both in our 40s, so it's probably taken us a while to get there. And we've had to unlearn and unpack so much. I was talking about it with my friend Helen Perry this morning when we went for a quick coffee, and all those I think another thing is that we look around to see what other people are doing.
Yes.
See what seems to be working for someone. Or we're told, like you say, like you were saying, like, the 80-hour weeks and the 6 steps programs to like 6-figure businesses and all that kind of stuff. So, we gradually absorb that, and all of a sudden we become like a composite of Amy Porterfield and Marie Forleo and I don't know.
Yes.
Who are, kind of like, we sort of like subconsciously or not subconsciously imbibe like all these other behaviors.
Yeah.
And we lose ourselves in doing that as well. Helen was saying today, she's like, well, who do we look to now? Because it's kind of like there's almost like, and I think as women we're always we're always looking for people around us. And just like, actually maybe it's just, it's our peers and that's great, and we can have conversations like these, Flic. But maybe we don't need to be looking for answers from other people. Maybe we just need to be going ourselves a little bit more and asking ourselves those questions.
I think, because obviously I started writing a fashion blog like 5-6 years ago. So, and about sustainable fashion. So very different. And that angle is definitely looking at influencers and people you're kind of looking up to and the message they're spreading. It's, to me now, where I'm sitting, having gone through all this experience, to me, it's about community and finding like-minded, amazing women like yourself. It's really interesting. The contact, I'm going to have to be really careful where I say this. The contact I've had with people who very established, the gold is not there for me. The gold is talking to people like you, who we are just doing it and we are living it and we are trying to show up every day, be very present and to, look after ourselves and do the right thing and just let it blossom and bloom, as opposed to chase those benchmarks, those measurements that are kind of quite shallow.
And also might not mean anything to you. It is interesting. I've seen Liz Gilbert speak, and I would say that she's not. I wouldn't put her in that category. I think she is deeply. No. I've seen her like someone. I remember like someone asking her about a question that she'd talked about self-love and how if you can't have self-love and you can't have this, and this woman said, I find it really hard. I was abused as a child. I've always struggled with self-love, and I think it was a big audience. It's in London pre-pandemic, and this Gilbert's just, you can see her face, just like, did I say that? What an arsehole. She said, I don't stand by that. I don't stand by saying that. And she couldn't, she was like, I would probably suggest self-steward. She was like, said, I was wrong. If I said that, what a dick. And I'm sorry if I caused you any sort of anxiety. And she was just so human and so, like, no, I made a mistake. I got that wrong. And
yes.
I'm not that person. I'm not that person who would have thought that. Yeah. Whereas I have seen other high profile people promote books, for example, and they've come on and they are so glossed. They have basically glossed any kind of like you say, any kind of gold that you can relate to out of it. And it's just a performance and it's a broadcast. Looks good, doesn't feel great.
No. Doesn't feel great and doesn't resonate and doesn't.
No, I know. And you feel a bit cheated, Flic. Yeah, you feel a bit like, I can't believe I paid for that.
Yeah. The value for me is being with people who just show up as themselves. And Liz Gilbert like completely stood on that stage. She was completely herself. When we walked in, the So she did an evening one and then she did a Saturday workshop. When we walked into this big room, she stood at the front and she hugged every woman who
I bet she did, yeah.
There were 2 blokes, but she hugged, and I was just like, she was as real as you just feel like you're having coffee with her, chatting.
Yeah.
So it's those people. I think we are shifting, and we are hopefully showing up more as ourselves, and hopefully we will then give ourselves permission to look after ourselves so we can authentically show up even more. Yeah. Oh.
It's an important conversation, Flic. I should have we'll talk about it another time. I'll bring you on for one of my sessions next time, I think.
Oh yes, we'll sit and have a good old chat. I could sit and talk to you all day. This is a bit like we're digging in deep.
Sorry, we've got a little bit off agenda, but there we go.
Oh no, because I think it's all part of it, isn't it? It's all part of it. I think there's going to be women listening to this who are either, coming out of burnout or kind of, teetering on the edge. These things we're talking about are going to be,
it's the tango, isn't it? It's the tango that we do with it.
Yes, it really is. It really is. And to me, I felt I was slow dancing with burnout.
Yeah, you said slow dancing. I'm sort of more like a tango. I think I sort of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Yeah.
At that point, I was just like, whatever. Oh, it's been fantastic talking to you, Tony.
Thank you for having me.
I have been asking, are you up for this? I've been asking all my guests some little quick fire, light-hearted questions to end on, because it's really interesting. We're all so different.
Okay.
Are you up for it?
Yeah, I am, but I just don't want to come across as a real square, and I'm really not.
Oh my God, darling, you are not a bloody square. Absolutely not. Right, so on your dodgy, tough days, do you opt for lemon in water or lemon in gin?
Lemon and water. Yes, because all my good days happen. Yeah, all my good days. I'm not great with gin. I'm a wine girl.
Okay. But it's gone are the days of like fuel. Like I would drink all the coffee to get me through to drink all the wine. It was just this perpetual.
Yeah, no. Good days to me start with the hot water and lemon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Move your body or move the remote?
Body. Yeah. I've got I don't know what it is. I've got this. I haven't got this body. I am one of those people that if I miss more than 2 days exercise, I just can't function. I used to run as in Cyprus. I ran at quite high levels. I think it's just something.
It's so.
I get quite anxious about it. I feel like I've got to apologise for the fact that I like exercise. I love exercise. I love movement.
Well, because it's so good and it helps you sustain. God, I'm tripping over my words here. It helps you keep that sustainable pace of, doing your work and showing up as you. And I think, yeah. And also, I mean, you're right. So I spend so much, it's almost that balance thing. Like we spend so much time sitting on our laptops, and I'm not one of those people. I can't write standing up. Yeah.
So I always do like 10,000 steps a day and some sort of workout. My happy face. So much better. I've been saying that to my kids. My 14-year-old, he had a week of just lying on the sofa watching. At first I was like, it's okay, school is finished here, I'm gonna let him chill. And then I said to him on Saturday, like, I have seen you get worse. Like your body needs to move. And now you've become demotivated. Like you're gonna have to start and do something. We certainly need it. Yeah, I do. Like when my son was sitting, I'd do a workout with him. Now my daughter's delighted that she's got one happening tomorrow as well.
Oh, fantastic!
I really loved it. We did one on, when was it, the other day together. And I loved it. She was just like,
you're like, come on.
I know. Exactly. Yeah.
Now, are you bag of almonds or bag of Maltesers?
I love almonds.
Yes. Like salted almond, glass of wine.
Yeah, or like, that's the one.
Yeah.
Or like the barbecue flavoured ones.
Oh, yeah, hits the spot.
Yeah.
Done. Right. Ask for help or happy to hermit?
I want to be better at asking for help.
I know, me too. I'm so good at being a hermit.
But I looked at that because I'm not happy to hermit. I do hermit, and I do, as per, in your first episode where you say, you withdraw and become isolated. The way I do self-isolation is how I struggle with, how I deal with stress, or that's my response mechanism. But I would love to be good at asking for help.
Oh, I know, me too.
And I don't think working for yourself makes you worse at it.
I think we're really bad. At
because we've forgotten, how to. I mean, I think I probably have forgotten how to be in a team. like a big team. Where when I was leading, you were probably the same, leading big teams, and you'd be like, "Could you do this for me? Could you do this for me? Can you check that, please?" I've forgotten how to do that, and then I'll ask my director for another team member on because we're running out of resource or something. I'd forgotten how to do that, and also because we have to do everything, right? With the CMO, with the FD. We're HR, we're everything.
And we're on our own. So you're not at a desk with anyone thinking out aloud that someone can say, oh, actually, I know how to do that. I can do that.
Yeah. Or having a chat, let's talk it through.
Yes, we don't have that situation. And I think I really struggle with it. That is something I'd love to get better at.
I know.
But ironically, if someone's to ask me for my help, I wouldn't even think twice. I wouldn't judge. I wouldn't question it. But
I bet you're like me, where you give so much away as well. Like you just of course, here you go. Let me sort of spend, have half an hour of my time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But I can't. It has to be the energy flow. The energy flow has to be an exchange, doesn't it? So you have to be able to also ask for help if you're giving it. And that I haven't worked that one out yet.
Okay, we'll work on that one together. I'm going to hold. We'll be accountability buddies.
That's it. Now, lastly, what's the one thing you're going to do today that your future self is going to thank you for? Like what self-care thing are you going to do?
I mean, I think I've already done it for today, if that's okay. Because also I was thinking about, your future self. This is my future self at 5:00 this evening. But it's the journaling in the morning. It's just become so integral to my sense of self, I think. And if I don't do it, I sort of carry stuff around with me all day, and I never feel settled. So I think it helps me get connected to the day, rooted in the day, grounded in the day. So it is that journaling piece. And I know it's becoming a lot more sort of common for people to sort of use it as a practice, but I can't encourage it enough.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah. It's quite sacred for me.
They're sacred. They really are. That's one piece of time that I would always protect.
Yeah, I think everything could go. I could ditch the meditation, everything else can go, but that,
I love it. Oh, Tony, thank you so much. Amazing.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. Love this.
And I will put in the show notes all your details so people can find. And I'll put in the things we've mentioned today and the people.
Yeah, I'll send you the books that I mentioned. I mentioned Laura Vanderkam, didn't I? And I will send you all those.
Yeah, lovely. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
So nice to see your face.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everyday Burnout Conversations. Please check the show notes for any links to items discussed today, and the original music and sound editing is by Chris Taylor. If you've enjoyed this podcast and have a spare few minutes, then it would be absolutely amazing if you could leave me a happy starry rating and review. It really does help this podcast reach a little further, and I'd just love it to land in the lap of those who, like me, last year are perhaps feeling isolated and lonely in their burnout struggle. Please note, this podcast is not intended as medical advice. Remember, you matter, so don't hesitate to reach out to your doctor or mental health professional for support if you're having a rough time. Wishing you a great week and take good care of yourself. Bye for now.